Hello, I am Tim Grant Jones and I want to help you improve your piano playing. This is the second of 3 videos concerning piano exercises. In part 1 I introduced the Hannah No. 1 exercise as the model for all demonstrations, which were concerned with using it purely as a technical exercise. I recommend you watch that video first before watching this one. This video is concerned with showing you how to use Hannah No. 1 to improve your musicianship and synchronization skills with keyboard spatial awareness and aural perception. The Hannah No. 1 exercise was my chosen model because of its memorability, use of full range of the piano and treating all 5 fingers equally. Now, some people think scales make good exercises. They do teach you the major and minor key signatures, but actually they only go so far. For these purposes, the Hannah No. 1 can take you much deeper into key awareness, and I'd like to show you how. In scale playing, every note is played by the same finger every time, whether ascending or descending. And the hands learn the different distances of a tone and semitone and which fingers have to widen by subtle amounts to find the neighbouring notes. In C major, all the neighbouring notes feel the same distance apart because they are all white keys next to each other, whether a tone or a semitone distance, the C major scale. And as you know, the scale is made up of just tones and semitones. In other keys, neighbouring notes have various differences and directions physically to get the semitone and the tone distance, depending on the white and black key note patterns. So here's E major scale. I'll come back to that a little later, but notice how I had to move up and down and backwards and forwards to achieve the scale, whereas I did not have to do all that when playing C major. So playing the scale helps you play the scale, but it does not help you think in that key. Thinking in that key is essential when reading and playing music in that key and improvising. In reality, notes are not necessarily composed in scale order in pieces, and the regular scale fingerings cannot apply. For much of the time, you are not likely to use the same fingers on the same notes as in the actual scale. So you can see that practicing the scale helps you play the scale. That's probably the limit. This is where Hannah No. 1 comes in. Imagine you are going to play something in E major. Playing the scale, an arpeggio of E major certainly helps. And maybe the related arpeggios. Here's the dominant. Here's the subdominant. And you could go through some of the other related chords as well. But to really think in E major, we can play the Hannah No. 1 in that key, and to learn to predict where the fingers have to go. We're going to use the same 5-finger pattern as we did in the original C major Hannah No. 1. So the thumbs will always start the pattern, and we're just transposing the exercise lock, stock and barrel into E major. Here is Hannah No. 1 in E major. First one hand, then the other, and then both. Just a few patterns going upwards. every note in the key of E major was played by each finger in turn, and the shape created by the black and white key combinations just moved up the finger order one by one. But it's not the individual notes that matter. It's how you get to each note from the previous one. Getting from B to C sharp, for instance, is a very different feeling between second and third fingers compared to third and fourth, compared to fourth and fifth. And the key of E major is full of all these small adjustments. The fingers need to train to expect these judgments, as the ear detects the need note by note, whether you are rising or falling, a tone or a semitone. The scale alone wouldn't train you to do this, whereas the Hanon does, because every pair of fingers has played every combination of notes, the tones and the semitones. Now the note combinations for a semitone can be from white key to white key, here's B to C, or from white key to black key, C to C sharp, or from black key to white key, C sharp to D. Those are the three ways that you can move the interval of a semitone. They all sound the same distance, but they all feel very different because of the shape on the piano from white to black key, black to white, or two white keys. And you are learning to detect which of these is about to happen physically when you are playing each scale and each Hammond exercise. And you are learning to detect the physical movement that you're going to need because your ear is hearing where you're about to go. Now similarly, there are actually 4 possible black-white combinations for the shape of a tone. So when you are playing Hanon number 1 in E, your hand is making all 4 of these familiarizations. And then there is the thumb, which is further away from the keys than the fingers. The hand is forever travelling backwards and forwards to accommodate this, and you're avoiding the twist of the wrist, of course. So watch the arm movement as I demonstrate here Hanon number 1 E with the thumb moving backwards and forwards without thinking, hopefully. Hanon number 1 in E. The amount of movement backwards and forwards isn't a huge amount, but it's enough, and you do need to do it. But you need to do it without thinking. Now all of this comes together, the knowledge of the distances sideways, up and down, backwards and forwards, all comes together when you can play Hanon number 1 in E without looking. So on. And now you really have improved your keyboard awareness and automatic response to the keys, with improvements to your oral memory too. And now this happens as soon as your hands do this easily and automatically, which you can prove by not looking. Now the key of E major is a bit of a jump from C major, suddenly having 4 black keys. So I recommend that your first transposition should be G major, or F major. And then you can go on to the key with 2 sharps and 2 flats, and then 3 and so on, and work your way through the cycle of fifths and cover all the 12 major keys. Now the minor keys are not to be ignored, so the use of the harmonic minor is the best here, as it gives that delightful awkward augmented second interval. Now just as with the major keys, each consecutive pair of fingers will cover that awkward interval. And as you know, every harmonic minor key uses at least one black key. So let's just start with A minor. The new wider interval of an augmented second is F to G sharp. Hannah number 1 in A minor. And coming down. Now that does sound a little strange at first, but you'll soon get used to it, and it's worth it because the exercise is terrific fun, but it's also very, very good for you. It will help you learn the minor keys. If you're going to play music in any particular minor key, just play the Hannah exercise in that key before you start to play it and practice it. So the minor second the augmented second, I should say, has 4 possible white-black key combinations, and of course each pair of fingers covers all those in turn. So you can play Hannah number 1 through all the harmonic minors just as systematically as with the major keys, starting with A minor and then going on to D and E minor, then adding one more sharp or flat each time, and so on, until you've covered all the 12 minor keys. So now you have played Hannah number 1 in 24 keys, 12 majors and 12 minors. Well, there is a part 3 to come, and I haven't quite finished yet. So in part 3 I will show you how to improve your hand independence using the Hannah number 1 exercise. Thank you for watching.